originally, when the skills began to develop in the early 70s, created by myself and hundreds of mothers and fathers, I had to carry this stuff around in my head because there was no way that we could create a mixed media resource. And it was important that it's mixed media because we had skills that you had to see how to do rather than just read them in a book. And we had a skill that you had to learn best by listening rather than either seeing, which was impossible. How do you show the inside of a woman's vagina? Or read. It didn't make sense. So I carried this all around in my head. And in 1996, after I'd immigrated to New Zealand, I found somebody who was willing to help us make this resource. The video was a VHS, a book and a cassette. Just imagine that now. In 2000, that was what we launched, and it was called the Pink Kit. Only because it was a box set and the person who designed the cover designed it a pink. So we called it the Pink Kit. And from 2000 to 2004 or 5, when we switched to CDs and DVDs, and then a few years later switched to digital downloads, and now have learning management systems so that you can learn online. For the first number of years, it was called the Pink Kit. And people would say, I had a Pink Kit birth, or I have a Pink Kit baby. And Jeannie had the Pink Kit. It was on her shelf. She had the VHS cassette and a book in the pink box called the Pink Kit. When people were asked, what's a Pink Kit or what's a Pink Kit birth? Families would say it's about birthing better. And this is what this video is about. What does birthing better mean? And for all of us as birthing better families, it's really simple. What it means is that we used birth and birth coaching skills so we could cope better, deal with, handle, stay on top of, work through, manage, and feel more in control as the activity of birthing our baby unfolded. If we were having a known cesarean, it meant we could use skills on the way to the hospital while being prepped and during the surgery. If we labored, labor is tiring and it can be painful. And even with skills, it's hard work. That's why it's called labor. Why are women being given epidurals? Because they lack skills to cope and manage and deal with and work through the natural occurring pain of labor contractions. We can birth better, and we birth better because we understand that 100% of pregnant women are going to give birth one way or another, and that it's an activity that each of us does one way or another, and that every activity that humans do is done better when we have some skills. So when we had the Pink Kit, and everybody was saying I had a Pink Kit birth and a Pink Kit baby, their friends and relatives would say, what's a Pink Kit? And they would come back and say it's about birthing better. When I was building the website, there were no keywords. But in a few years, Google started to have keywords. So I put in the word video, good word, we had a VHS. I put in VHS as well. And I put in the color pink because the box was pink. And immediately our analytics shifted from 10 people a day to 3,000. Massive shift. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. But then Google Analytics allowed us to trace back where the searches were coming from. 99.9% of those searches were coming from pornography sites because I had used the word video and the word pink. So we had to change the name. So we changed it to Birthing Better because at that point somebody had written a book called Better Birth. But what we realized was psychologically, when we birth better, it's what we do. And we birth better in all birth circumstances, without exception, when we apply our skills. A better birth is assuming that you can choose the birth you want and expect people to give you that birth, that you had a better birth. But a better birth is actually a new concept that arrived in the 1980s when women were then encouraged to make a birth plan and to have choices around childbirth. We were all told, you know what kind of birth you want, so just ask for it and it shall be given. But the reality is prior to that, throughout time and place, the idea about birth was you never know what your birth is going to be like, so there's really nothing you can do to prepare for it. However, when I first gave birth in 1970, I was at the tail end of a generational shift when Lamaze and Bradley brought skills to childbirth. We lacked choices. Were we looking to have a better birth? Yes, we were. However, we were looking to have a better birth because we used skills to do that. However, Lamaze and Bradley had a big hitch that we're trying to remedy now. Things became more complicated in the 1980s when the third childbirth concept became popular, which was write a birth plan and make a choice. That was only really geared to low risk women as well. During that period, skills were actively dismissed. In other words, from the 70s to the 80s, we went from having skills and no choices to having choices and no skills. And what we're saying to you now is to birth better for all of us, we need to include skills and choices together. Everybody should be able to birth better because the birth of each of our babies is important to us. That's an activity. We can use birthing skills no matter the type of birth we have, no matter where we birth, who's with us, our beliefs, our choices, lack of choices, change of choices, circumstances, what is done to us or around us. When we have skills, we birth better. It's just full stop. Do you think that 100% of birthing better families all had idealistic births? Of course not. First of all, the skills were developed by high-risk families. We wanted control, and the only thing we could control was how we responded to what was happening to us and around us at the time that our birth unfolded. So we birthed better because we used the skills that we developed. And you can too.